People assume the greatest danger of living alone at 92 is a steep staircase or a slippery rug. But the thing that nearly ended my life had nothing to do with gravity at all. It was a habit so quiet, I didn't even know it was erasing me. My name is Martha Langford. I am 92 years old, a widow, and the stubborn sole occupant of this house. You might remember me. A while back, I told you how my well-meaning daughter, Catherine, tried to manage my aging with a clipboard. I told you how I escaped the guest room, fired the clinical caregiver, and built my own chaotic, beautiful village with my 29-year-old neighbor, Maya, and her children, Leo and Chloe. Catherine finally stopped trying to move me into a facility. She saw that I had survived. But surviving, I quickly learned, is not the same as living. Once you win the battle to keep your house, you are faced with the terrifying, empty silence of actually having to live in it. I want to share 6 realizations that saved me from becoming a ghost in my own home. These aren't rules. I'm too old for rules. But they are truths I bought at a very high price. Number 1, do not make your life a waiting room. I didn't realize I was doing this until I lost an entire Tuesday. Catherine usually calls me on Tuesday afternoons. Because I had nothing else planned, I woke up, got dressed, and sat in my brown armchair by the window. I didn't start a book because she might call. I didn't go out to the garden because I might miss the ring. At 4 o'clock, the phone rang. It was Catherine. We spoke for exactly 12 minutes. When I hung up, I looked at the clock, and a cold dread washed over me. I had spent 9 hours holding my breath for a 12-minute phone call. When you are old and alone, it is dangerously easy to let other people's schedules dictate your existence. You become a passive character, waiting for the active characters to drop in. The next day, I took the phone off the hook and went outside to pull weeds for an hour. If someone calls and you are busy living your life, they can simply leave a message. You are not a receptionist for your own end of days. Number 2, the poison of making do. The most dangerous thing in my kitchen wasn't the gas stove. It was a bruised peach. When Arthur was alive, I set the dining table every night. I bought fresh bread. I made roasted chicken and proper salads. But after a few years completely on my own, my meals became tragic little negotiations. Why dirty a pan just for me? Why buy fresh fruit if no one is here to admire the bowl? One evening, I found myself standing in the dark over the kitchen sink, eating a bruised, overripe peach and a piece of stale toast for dinner. I caught my reflection in the window glass. I looked like a scavenger. I realized with absolute horror that I had decided I was no longer worth the effort of a proper meal. I threw the peach away. I turned on every light in the kitchen. I fried a beautiful piece of fish in butter, put it on my best china plate, poured a glass of wine, and sat at the head of the table. You must be the honored guest in your own home. If you treat yourself like an afterthought, your spirit will begin to believe it. Number 3, the illusion of the preserved past. I kept Arthur's heavy winter coat hanging on the brass hook by the front door for 8 years. I thought I was honoring his memory. I thought moving it would mean I was finally leaving him behind. Then one afternoon, Maya's 7-year-old daughter, Chloe, came over to show me her drawing. It had started to rain, and the air was chilly. She looked at the massive wool coat on the hook, then looked up at me with those wide, entirely unsentimental eyes children have. "Martha," she asked, "is the big man coming back from work soon?" My breath caught in my throat. I looked at that coat, really looked at it, and saw a heavy gray ghost. I wasn't honoring Arthur. I was freezing my home in a timeline that no longer existed. The past is meant to be a foundation, not a cage. The very next morning, I carefully folded the coat, cried a little, and donated it to a veteran shelter. A home must serve the people who are currently breathing inside it. Do not force the living to tiptoe around a museum. Number 4, the selfishness of stubborn pride. I thought true independence meant never showing weakness. I thought if I asked for a favor, the world would instantly declare me incompetent. Last October, the heavy wooden window in my living room got stuck open. A bitter autumn wind was blowing in. My arthritic hands couldn't budge the sash. I spent 3 hours freezing, wrapped in blankets, refusing to go next door and ask Maya for help. I would rather shiver than admit I was weak. Eventually, Maya knocked on my door. She was holding a torn pair of Leo's trousers. "Martha," she said, looking exhausted, "I don't know how to sew. Can you fix this?" I took the pants. And then, feeling a strange surge of courage, I said, "Only if you can close my living room window." It took her 4 seconds to slam the window shut. It took me 10 minutes to stitch the trousers. When we looked at each other, I felt a deep sting of regret for my earlier pride. Allowing someone to help you isn't a surrender of your dignity. It is an invitation to connect. When you refuse all help, you are actually being incredibly selfish because you are denying people the joy of being useful to you. True independence is knowing exactly when to lean. Number 5, do not shrink your footprint. There is a lie you tell yourself when the house feels too quiet. You tell yourself to be efficient. I decided I didn't need to go upstairs anymore. The stairs were tiring. I moved my books down to the living room. I stopped going into the guest bedrooms to dust. I closed the doors to save on heating. I confined my entire 92 years of life into 3 rooms on the ground floor. Within 2 months, I felt my mind getting smaller. My body grew stiffer. The walls literally felt like they were pressing inward. When you shrink your physical footprint, your psychological footprint shrinks with it. You stop stretching. You stop reaching. One morning, my knees were aching terribly, but I forced myself to walk up the stairs. I opened the door to the guest room. I opened the windows and let the spring air blast in. I wiped down the dressers. I made the space mine again. Take up space in your own life. Walk the corners of your property. If you make yourself small, the world will happily let you disappear. Number 6, plant the bulbs anyway. When you are in your 90s, people assume your future is a closed book. They only ask you about the past. Last autumn, I went to the local garden center. I had a basket full of daffodil and tulip bulbs. The young man at the register, who couldn't have been more than 20, looked at my wrinkled hands, looked at the massive pile of bulbs, and gave me a sad, sympathetic smile. "You know, ma'am," he said gently, These won't really mature and put on a full display until a year or two from now. He was trying to protect me. He was calculating my odds. I felt a flash of anger, followed by a profound, quiet clarity. I looked him right in the eye. "I know," I said, "but someone is going to walk past this yard in 2 years, and they are going to see a beautiful spring." I went home, and I got on my hands and knees in the dirt. Little Leo dug the holes with a plastic yellow shovel, and I dropped the bulbs in. This is the most important thing I can tell you. You cannot stop investing in tomorrow just because you might not be there to see the sunrise. You have to keep making plans. You have to keep starting books. You have to keep loving the noisy, messy, beautiful people who wander into your yard. Aging isn't about fading away quietly so you don't bother anyone. It's about taking up your rightful space, planting seeds you might not see grow, and leaving the door unlocked for whatever life wants to walk in today. I am Martha Langford. The chair still clashes with the curtains. My knees still ache in the rain, but I am not waiting in the dark. I am sitting in the light, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be.